In the words of Chris Rose, can the Chiefs keep riding the D?
I think they can.
Okay. See,
Yeah,
that was appropriate way to answer that than Maurice
ride it.
Jones-Drew did. Yeah, keep riding that D hard.
Ride it. Ride that D for as long as you can.
Yes.
For as long as you can until for at least this month.
It wasn't as bad as Roz Gold on Wood A 10 years ago. Clay, how much you feed off the D? Ha ha. Oh man.
We're all just children at heart. We're having fun. This is fun.
We are having fun, but you really can't set your guy up, Maurice Jones-Drew, to be like, how much can they ride the D? How long is how's he supposed not to respond to that?
I think Maurice Jones-Drew was well within his rights, and I think that Chris Rose knew that as soon as he said it, that he made a mistake.
Yes, it was fun, awkward television, although not as awkward as Tony Romo yesterday.
Why? What was so awkward about Tony Romo?
He was just awkward the whole broadcast, dude. He's just an awkward individual to begin with. So they were talking about MLK Day, and then Tony Romo just awkwardly goes, "Yeah, Jim, MLK certainly deserves a holiday."
I mean, it could be worse. It could be Pat McAfee saying that he got canceled last week, even though he's still on the air on multiple platforms.
Yeah, I don't think people realize what canceled means.
No, really?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but like, didn't he start off with like, "Well, MLK Day, ladies and gentlemen," and I think we all can agree that Lank really epitomizes that phrase. Like, are you serious, dude?
Yeah.
What does that have to do with anything? But yeah, if you don't know what to say about MLK Day, then just don't say anything. Is my opinion, man.
Well, it's hard to not when you're on like a national broadcast, but maybe you should think of something to say before, like Romo should have.
Yeah.
Anything?
Or, yeah, I mean, yeah, no doubt. But like, I think also puts people in an awkward position because they're like, "Oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing." Just say MLK was a great man, and we deserve to have this holiday. And I'm glad that every state in America recognizes it now. It's not that hard.
Well, tell that to them.
Yeah, exactly. Just your opinion, man. Stephen Langford, Derek Papa. Stephen, what'd you think of Super Wildcard Weekend?
I think it was a wild card weekend.
Was super? Okay, I'll ask this. What was more exciting the last week? All of the head coach turnover or the games themselves?
More exciting? The games themselves, because why? How do you find head coaching turnover exciting?
I mean, it can be with the big names that we're
it's
getting.
so exciting that these guys lost their jobs.
Not like that.
What a happy time! Oh, you know what? I loved watching these guys put all this work in over the past few years, all for it to go up in flames. I found that more exciting than watching the games. Yeah,
you're twisting my words. What I'm saying is the news of it from big names like Mike Vrabel and Belichick being free agents, basically. Like, this is the most high-profile free agency period I've ever seen for head coaches. And yes, believe me, I think the games always take precedent over outside news and whatnot because we're still in the NFL playoffs. But I got to admit, the only game that was fascinating was Rams-Lions. The rest of them were blowouts and kind of hard to watch, to be honest. It's football. Don't get me wrong. I'm always going to watch NFL playoffs. But as far as the games, they weren't super.
No, it was not Super Wildcard Weekend. They need to change they need to change the name. They can't call it Super next year. Not until it's actually Super again. For now, it's Mediocre Wildcard Weekend.
Okay, but if it's Super next year, can we call it Super Duper Wildcard Weekend?
Only if it's good.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we'll get to it all. We will get to it all today. All 6 games. A little bit of coaching news, but no one's been hired yet. Well, actually, one person, Gerard Mayo. Since the last time we did a podcast, I believe we didn't mention it last time, but I think news was coming out that day. Then it became official the following day. Gerard Mayo named New England Patriot head coach. We'll get to that a little later, but let's talk about the games.
We don't need to get to the Gerard Mayo thing. Whatever. Gerard Mayo's a head coach. Whoop-de-doo. Will Levis to the Patriots confirmed.
Why do you say that?
Because Will Levis loves Mayo.
Fair enough.
Bang.
Okay, did you think it was interesting though that he had that written in his contract already that like
That
Belichick?
they could bypass the Rooney Rule and then just hire him immediately. Yeah.
That was interesting, but I guess it was kind of stupid of us to all think like, oh, Vrabel's gonna get that job for like a year. Robert Kraft and Belichick and all of them were just sitting on it, being like, well, we all know who's gonna take over, but good for him. That's another
Well,
rebuilding franchise, so probably the best that Vrabel did not go
yeah.
there.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wants to go to that team right now. Where are they? Like Bill Belichick, for all the praise and rightfully so, regarding him as the greatest of all time and what he's done. Belichick, the GM, is partially the reason why they're in a place where they're at right now, which is they're without a quarterback, they're with a new head coach, and it's going to take another 2 to 3 years as the Dolphins continue to get better. I'm sure the Bills are going to want to build on top of this season. Obviously, the Jets are going to have Aaron Rodgers, we think, next year. Who knows what's going to happen with that injury? But yeah, for the Patriots, it's going to be the bottom of the AFC East for a while, and I don't think any one head coach could change that one way or the other.
No, I'm with you there. But as far as the games, did you like when I saw that the Steelers Bills game was going to be postponed until Monday? I was like, damn it.
Yeah.
That, when you hear all of these forecasts, you're like, well, that's going to be fun to watch. And the Dolphins Chiefs game delivered on how cold it was, but it didn't snow or anything. The Steelers Bills game, when you see that news, you're like, well, shit. I mean, do they really want snow games anymore in the NFL? And then when you saw the video the day of, and it's like a blizzard outside, the
Yeah.
snow is like picking up the like field stuff for the game. The goalposts are moving. I was like, yeah, they couldn't play in that. And mostly it was because they didn't want Steeler fans driving from Pittsburgh to Buffalo, which is close, getting caught in terrible road conditions. So
Yeah.
it did
I
make
mean,
sense.
they've seen Groundhog Day once or twice, you know? They don't want to be like Bill Murray, we're supposed to hit Altoona.
It's been a while, but I remember Norman Johnson. Was that the guy that he runs into every day?
Norman Johnson. No, I don't know.
I thought you were going to be the expert on Groundhog's Day.
I should be the expert on Groundhog Day, but Norman Johnson?
Yeah, that was the dude that or no, not Norman Johnson. What was it? Ned Ryerson?
Yeah, Ned Ryerson. I could talk to you about Ned Ryerson all day. Needle nose Ned,
who-
Ned the head. Come on,
Norman
buddy.
Norman Johnson's from The Jerk with Steve Martin.
Yeah. Wrong 80s comedy that's kind of died down a little bit. Anyway, no, it should not have been
Jerk
played.
is great.
Yeah.
What?
Steve Martin a little overrated in my opinion, but we don't need to have that.
Whoa. No, I got to hash that out now. Why?
I don't find him that funny.
You're alone there. Well, old Steve Martin. I haven't watched Only Murders in the Building or whatever the hell it's called.
Have you watched Bringing Down the House recently?
No.
Oh my God. I used to love that when I was a kid. And then I'm like, how the hell did this get made?
Well, I'm sure it doesn't work today, Steven.
And I'm sorry, but look, here's the thing. All right, maybe I just said I don't like him. You take that back, nice guy. What? Yeah, I'm sorry, but I think Steve Martin, Jerry Seinfeld, those types of guys, overrated.
Okay, you can't put Steve Martin in the same category as Jerry Seinfeld.
Overrated.
You ever seen King Tut?
No.
Yeah, it was an old bit he used to do back in the day. You just got to appreciate old comedy, Steven.
All right, fine.
All right. Did you like, despite the weather, whatever, Steelers Bills was played, it was fine. Did you like the 2-2-2 every day from Saturday to Monday? No, why not?
I didn't. Well, I didn't like it on Monday. What the hell is a Monday? It's the middle of the I had to work. So for me, we're talking personally here. I'm getting selfish. I'm just talking about myself.
Yeah.
For
selfish
I like that it was split 2-2-2. But me personally had the day off, or I didn't have the day off. Had to work. So when I got back home and it was Bills Steelers, I was exhausted. So what I saw was Khalil Shakir shake out the entire Steelers defense for that sick touchdown. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Saw it go to halftime, and then I fell asleep at halftime. And I woke up in the middle of the fourth quarter.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well, sounds
so
like
I thought that
job.
Well, I also went to sleep thinking that okay, the Bills are just going to run away with this one. I didn't
Right.
think it was going to be close, and then lo and behold, I look at the score and it's damn close till the end.
Yeah. I mean, for us that have the holiday off, unlike you, Stephen, I liked it because
Yeah.
it works. And this is another thing where people will say the NFL is getting greedy by taking away MLK Day from the NBA. But whatever. Like, it'll be interesting to see if they do it next year like that. I'm sure they'll think of it as it's a national holiday, so why wouldn't we do that? But there are people that still work. I mean, in the sports, media, everybody did their shows for the most part. Some people were off. But yeah, I mean, it all depends on what's going on for those who still work. But I think for the majority of Americans that watch football, that probably will be something that you see going forward is the 2-2-2 schedule.
The 2-2-2.
The 2-2-2.
I
So
like the three. I like the three. I like the 3-2-1. I could deal with the 3-2-1. I like having the three on Saturday. Gives you a chance to wake up in the morning and literally watch football all day. But I also say that as a person on the West Coast. Easy on the West Coast. On the
okay.
East Coast, I'm not so sure how I'd feel about that one.
All right, fair enough. All right, as far as the games that were played this weekend, what's the one that stood out to you the most, Stephen?
Ooh, well, I mean, the one that how about this? I'll start from the bottom. All right,
Okay.
Chiefs Dolphins. Chiefs Dolphins was the worst game of the weekend.
Because it was on Peacock?
No, not
Oh,
because it was on Peacock.
okay.
Because the Dolphins had no chance. I forgot. Someone tried to make the case that the Dolphins would be more suited for the cold weather game. I forgot who it was. It was a pretty prominent analyst who tried to turn things around. I'm like, nah, you're overthinking it. Tyreek Hill might be okay, but that's about it. They're not going to do anything. And they didn't, other than that Tyreek Hill touchdown. And by the way, it seems like Tyreek Hill is just checked out. And I don't know how I'd feel if I had him on my team when I'm trying to win a championship. It seems like he's pretty happy that he's already got his ring and that he got the bag. He doesn't seem to care too much. But and also that could be a problem with me questioning his commitment. But anyway, that one I did not find exciting at all. But you know what? There was some intrigue with the other ones though. Because Rams Lions was unquestionably the most, I'd say, it was the game you could watch through the second half, no question. Like there's no doubt that it was just all four quarters, Rams Lions, the intrigue, the atmosphere, everything happening in Detroit, all the videos that were surfacing and stuff towards the end, like Eminem actually showing some emotion when he's put on when he's put on screen on the Jumbotron, Lose Yourself being played at the same time, all the white dudes getting their chance to rap finally at a football game. But
because no one ever gets that.
But there's no doubt that was the most exciting game of the weekend. But I found Browns Texans to be fascinating, at least for the first couple of quarters, because a lot of people had the Browns winning, and and it was understandable. Like Browns had one of the best defenses in the NFL, if not the best, going into it. Joe Flacco, way more seasoned, experienced quarterback. He understands what it takes to get through the playoffs and understands how to navigate it. CJ Stroud, a younger Texans team you didn't really know, but man, with the way that CJ Stroud played, just a coming out party immediately. And I'm actually kind of happy that the game didn't continue the way that it did from the first quarter on, because we were going to go to the engagement photos and I had to leave it like halftime. So the fact that they just pulled away and ran away with it, I think I was actually listening on your station nationally as I was on my way, and Ian Eagle was on the call, but just a couple of pick sixes later, and it's like, damn, Texans are really in this thing. So I think that was a very intriguing matchup and something that, I think CJ Stroud is deserving of. So in a long-winded answer, the rest were actually all pretty good. It's just they weren't exactly down to the wire like the Rams Lions was.
No doubt. And yeah, I did terrible in picks. Only got 2 games right this whole weekend. I got the Chiefs winning, and I got the Bills winning. Is Phoebe causing you trouble?
Yeah, she's on the sink.
Oh.
Got her off though.
So with that, and I definitely, I mean, I think I was one of the few that was believing in the Eagles still. No, not one of the few because they were favored. But good God, that was awful. So I
Yeah.
lost in picks, and I will be doing the hot sauce challenge. I'll get a little pita chip ready to go here. But let's start with the NFC East team, Steven, because I think that was the most shocking
Yeah.
to, I guess, everyone. Not so much that they lost, but just the fashion that it happened. Both teams got annihilated, exposed, whatever you want to say. Just starting in Dallas. Um, damn. I mean, is it just a thing now where the Cowboys are just choke artists? I mean, I know you were saying that from the get go. I thought that this team would at least go to the NFC Championship game, but god damn. I mean, you brought it up. Aaron Jones is a Cowboys touchdown killer. He had 3 in the game. He had how many coming in, Steven? I think like a good amount, like 9 or something, or whatever the
Yeah.
amount was. It was an impressive stat.
7.
7. Okay. And that happened in this game. And Jordan Love, I mean, this guy's the real deal. I think the NFL has got some nice young quarterbacks from him to CJ Stroud to Brock Purdy. And this Packers team is one of the young or is the youngest team in football and one of the youngest teams to win a playoff game. I think the reality is Matt LaFleur just outcoached Mike McCarthy and he exposed the defense. And Jordan Love is becoming into his own. I know it was a slow, sluggish start for him as a quarterback, but he looks great. And I thought it was a fascinating quote from Nick Bosa today. He was asked about the Green Bay Packers and their preparation, and he said that Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame quarterback. You can't take anything away from him. But because he's such a great quarterback, he makes the off schedule throws and he does things that the coach doesn't necessarily tell him what to do.
Right.
Jordan Love is a quarterback that does what the coach tells him to do. And I don't know if that's his way of saying he's a game manager, but I think that's what the same thing that Brock
That's
Purdy has.
That's exactly what it is.
No, it is, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I think he's a schemed quarterback. He fits in what Matt LaFleur wants to do, and maybe Aaron Rodgers does not. And I think that, I mean, from everything from that, who was the tight end? Tucker Kraft, I want to say, caught the touchdown for the Green Bay Packers.
Luke Musgrave?
Okay, Luke Musgrave. That was a great play design.
Yeah.
That, I mean, all the plays were fantastic. But yeah, dude, I think that Jordan Love fits what Matt LaFleur wants to do better than what Aaron Rodgers. I mean, like everybody would take Aaron Rodgers on the team, but sometimes, you want the guy like Brock Purdy that fits the scheme that Kyle runs or, what Matt LaFleur does with Jordan Love. So I was thoroughly impressed with Jordan Love. On the other end, people are going to say, how could you blame Dak Prescott? He had great stats in that game. He didn't play well. He made up for it in garbage time and tried to get him back in that game. But the reality was he did not play well. He threw that pick 6 to Darnell Savage. He threw a bad interception to Jair Alexander. And before you knew it, they were down 27-0. So he did not have a good game. And I'm not putting the whole blame on him. I think that they just went into the game and got exposed. And I think that it was really because of Matt LaFleur and his coaching that were better than the Dallas Cowboys.
In the playoffs, you have to have some sort of threat of a run game. And they didn't have any of that. I was, you I was banging the drum for Tony Pollard to get a starting job somewhere. It was after that Texans game last year where I saw him just on the sideline and they didn't give him any carries and gave him all to Zeke. But they didn't have any threat at all. So it was up to Dak Prescott, and the Packers knew what was coming. They were putting pressure on him all day. But I do want to focus on Jordan Love for a second. Before we dive into, whether he can beat the 49ers and all that, no, we don't need to focus on that. For right now, I don't think that anyone has been through the ringer really as much as Jordan Love has this year. It has just been immediate take after immediate take. Preseason goes away, then it's like, I don't know if they found the next guy to succeed Aaron Rodgers here. Then he has a few good games to start the season. It's like, oh, damn, they really got something. Then in the middle of the season, that's when he faltered as well as the team did. And then towards the end of the year, we all saw his numbers. He ended up, and I think he had 36 touchdowns and 10 interceptions to close the year. Those could have been Dak's numbers, but they were damn close. Like the throws that he was making, sure, Matt LaFleur called a hell of a game. Don't get me wrong there. It did start with the coaching, but God, some of those throws just off the back foot when he's getting pressured in his face and just dropping dimes, like that touchdown to Dontavian Hicks. I want to say it was the one that made it like 48 to 16, I want to say, at the start of the fourth quarter. Like that touchdown where he just off his back foot sidearms it. I think this is I'm not so sure they're going to win the divisional round against the 49ers, but I don't think this Packers team is as advertised, which is it's just a bunch of first and second year players and they're overachieving. I think they're just I just think they're actually a decent team, and we just had to give them a chance. And we didn't really pay too much attention at the end of the season because, they weren't the 1, 2, 3, 4th, or 5th seeds anymore. So, and you didn't even know they were going to get into the playoffs. I think this team hasn't been watched as much as the others. And I think for that reason, we've been underrating them heading into the postseason.
No doubt. I think that they were playing very impressive football down the stretch. They did have some hiccups defensively, games against the Carolina Panthers, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But from Thanksgiving on, I mean, we talked about it then. I thought that they were going to be possibly a playoff team, and I was thoroughly impressed with the game that Jordan Love had that day. They're just young. They're really young, and they got some great playmakers on defense. Just hasn't gone together as well as the offense this year. But, I mean, the receivers they got are all like you can't, they're not like, well-known names, but they're going to be great for Jordan Love in the future. Romeo Dobbs, was it Dontavius Wicks?
Dontavian.
Dontavian Wicks. You got Christian Watson, Jaden Reed, Heath, just guys that you're like, who are these guys? But they're all young, they're all speedy, they all work.
See, this is what's amazing though. Before the season, it was talking about the Packers doing our little NFC North preview. It's like, I don't know. He's got a bunch of these young guys. We know Romeo Dobbs a little bit, but this Dontavian Wicks guy, he's a second-round pick. Christian Watson, we're still waiting for him to break out. We don't know what Luke Musgrave or whatever his name is, Luke Musgrave is going to look like. I mean, it's always like that. And there's a lot of hesitation in trying to give them too much praise. And then towards the end of the year, it's like, oh, they got these guys who can actually compete among the NFL's best. Like that Cowboys defense is no joke. Putting up 48 on that team at home. Like, I don't know about the defense giving up 32. Obviously, they gave up a majority in garbage time and probably had their sights set on the divisional round instead of the end of that game. I don't know really what happened. To be honest, I kind of stopped watching after that touchdown to Wicks, but just a very impressive win overall, man. And that pick by Jair Alexander, good God, man. And you can try to call that a penalty, call it like a defensive holding, defensive pass interference, whatever you want to call it. That was just a hell of a play. Got to reward the cornerback for that. And Dak just looked lost. Just couldn't throw any accurate footballs, man. It happens every year since 2016. What is he, 2-5? I think in playoff games as a starter now since 2016. So it's not getting any better. And it's been since 1995 since they made it past the NFC champion, or made it to the NFC championship. So I think that they're going to stick with Dak, but I don't think Mike McCarthy is going to be there much longer. I don't know what's going to happen with their offensive coordinator. I don't know. I don't know. And the other guy, Derek, sorry, I'm rambling, but we haven't even, you mentioned him at the top, but Aaron Jones as well. Like I saw a clip later, besides all of what he did, just running all over Dallas, because he grew up a Cowboys fan. And I think like I think it has to do with his dad, and he kind of runs with his dad in mind, and you have that extra motivation. But the mic'd up videos where these guys are saying like, I legit want to block for you, man. I want to get you as far as you can go. You're the veteran of this team. Like that means something. It's like, you can look at what's happening with the 49ers and the way their wide receivers block for Christian McCaffrey. You can look at the Steelers and the way that George Pickens is avoiding a block so that he can avoid an injury. Like, and we'll get to George Pickens later because this dude is just he's not doing himself any favors with speaking to anyone after the games. But anyway,
I didn't even see that.
yeah, but it's just I think I think the Packers have been very they're not just underrated, overlooked. Overlooked is what they've been this year towards the end.
I think Ernie nails it here. Hilarious that Packers traded Rodgers and Adams and made the offs before the other guys.
It's amazing.
No, I mean I think that something we got to learn next offseason is just because your teams don't make huge moves doesn't mean that they're not going to be good. The Packers and Buccaneers were not looked at as playoff teams coming into this season. And they all went younger. They all traded away veterans. They all tried to clear salary cap, and they got better through the draft. Sometimes that is the better move than making the headlines in the offseason. So I think that we all got to start looking about like what's on, like who's playing on this team. I mean, it's also hard to say. Like you can't tell me with all that inexperience that people thought the Packers were going to be great this season. I thought they could make it as a sneaky wild card team, maybe, but that was because their schedule was kind of easier. I didn't know about the rest of the NFC North, but I think Jordan Love is coming to his own. He's been extremely impressive, and I think that the reality is, I gotta stop saying that. I keep saying the reality is over and over again. What the Packers do best than more organizations is that they prepare their young QBs for the future. Aaron Rodgers did not start until his third or fourth season in the league, and Jordan Love had to do the same bullshit with Aaron Rodgers. Oh, am I coming back? I don't know. And then when he got his start, he killed it this year. And to win a playoff game in his first year as a starter is better than what Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers have done. So to nail it, we think on 3 straight quarterbacks is incredible for the Green Bay Packers. And I agree with you, Steven. The Cowboys, this is one of the first times where they did not have a running game. Like they've always had one with Zeke or DeMarco Murray or all the way back to Emmitt Smith. But this was the first time where you're like, God, they cannot run the football. And I always thought they were going to make a move possibly for somebody better like Derrick Henry, but it never happened. And that's what killed them. And they became such a pass-happy offense that, yes, the best teams in the postseason run the football. So I thought they got one-dimensional offensively. I thought that their injuries kind of got up with them while Deron Bland is having a great all-pro season. He's not the best cover corner, so you can expose him a little bit. And, yeah, the Cowboys did not come to play. So with all this in mind, we give kudos to the Green Bay Packers. Don't know what they're going to do against the 49ers, but just the fact that they got to this level already is impressive. As far as the Cowboys, sorry, you were going to say something else?
Just on the Packers real quick before you get to the Cowboys, because the Cowboys, good God, the Cowboys.
Show.
Great halftime speech, Jimmy Johnson.
I didn't even see that. I got to look this up.
God, it's kind of cringe because it's just like, it's a family show. I mean, and you're just yelling at a bunch of viewers. You're not yelling at the team. Like, easy. You're not in the locker room anymore. But anyway.
Well, same thing with Michael Irvin. Maybe later we got to play his video on the balcony. Anyway, go ahead.
Ooh. But the way the Packers ended things with Aaron Rodgers, I think that the way that he undermined Matt LaFleur as a head coach, the way that he was just always looking confused by the decisions that Matt LaFleur wanted to make, I think in turn, we just assumed that Matt LaFleur maybe not built for the NFL, and we kind of just stuck around with that through the middle of the season as they were, teetering on the edge of 500, not really, getting over the hump. But maybe we've also underrated Matt LaFleur as a head coach. And not only was this a coming out party for their younger players, but for him as well. And I think Aaron Rodgers and the way that he departed Green Bay had something to do with that. It's like, oh, he can't work with a 2-time MVP. What's wrong with this coach? He must not be very good, and we kind of make assumptions based on that. But I think now he's got these younger guys that have really bought in. Jordan Love, obviously, really bought in, doesn't have an ego to where he thinks he knows more than Matt LaFleur does, actually listens to his coach, and you're seeing the results.
No, definitely. And I think that the offense that Matt LaFleur wants to run works better with the Jordan Love, where he can do the shotgun play action, move to the left, move to the right, use his legs, while Aaron Rodgers has done that in the past when he was younger. He's an older quarterback, and it's not going to be the same. So as far as the Cowboys, Jerry Jones looked all pissed off. This is not what they were expecting. This is the
I
first
can't
time.
explain why.
This is the first time a 2 seed has lost in the wild card round to a 7 seed. So this is embarrassing, especially when it's the Green Bay Packers and what the Cowboys have had their rivalry with them in the past. And we've always talked about if Mike McCarthy got fired, then Dan Quinn would be probably in line to take that job. But after what the defense did, how could you make him the head coach? And also, I think Dan Quinn probably would feel more comfortable, honestly, going to the Seattle Seahawks over the Dallas Cowboys at this point. At least I think. So do you think, given what happened, that Mike McCarthy is going to lose his job?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think the Cowboys can afford any more time. Like, where do they go? And they're in a very weird place right now. It's every year. Like, Dak's becoming more of a veteran. He's coming into his own as a quarterback. Now he's among the top tier in the NFL. CeeDee Lamb, he's where he needs to be. We got this young running back, Tony Pollard. That's probably where it starts. It starts with making a head coaching change and just, getting rid of Mike McCarthy and then just changing the whole mindset. Because I think, unfortunately for McCarthy, he'd just serve as a reminder for the amount that they've failed since 2020 and not what they've done well, and, not creating hope for the season, not instilling it. But I think they also need to do something about their run game. I don't know whether it's bolstering the offensive line, doing something there, because they need that element to their game, or else it's just going to be a lot of, Dak heavy passing games where you convince people that he's the MVP in the regular season, only just to fall flat in the playoffs. This one's the worst, though. This one's the worst.
Oh, hands down. And I think that I do think they are going to make a move with McCarthy. I don't know when. They're probably mulling it over because they were like, we weren't expecting this. But I think it has to happen, especially I think this is going to be an interesting thing for the Cowboys and Eagles. And we'll get to the Eagles. But with the fact that they had such high expectations and their seasons were ended so quickly, and you have big names available head coaching wise, like Mike Vrabel or Jim Harbaugh or Bill Belichick, that you have to consider moving on from these coaches, even though they had, division winning, playoff clinching seasons. So, yeah, I do think that they got to make a change with Mike McCarthy. I think they will. I would keep Dak Prescott as quarterback. He's on there for one more year. You don't need to give him a new contract. Even though he had an MVP-like season, he probably will finish second. From judging by the way that the AP voters did on the All-Pro team, it seems like they like Dak Prescott's year more than Brock Purdy. And that's just the way it is. Numbers talk more. I guess they respect the fact that he's not more, in their eyes, a system QB than Dak is. But I would argue against that. Yeah, I do think they need a culture change. I honestly think that Vrabel would be a better option than Belichick or Harbaugh in that situation. And funny enough, Derrick Henry is a free agent this offseason, so that could be a connection there. But yeah, I was, with how well the Cowboys played at home this season, I was kind of shocked about just how unprepared they were and just how they got kicked in the ass, and it was alarming. And yeah, I think it's just honestly that Matt LaFleur outcoached Mike McCarthy, and I think that you can't have that going forward.
No, not at all. They weren't paying attention to a 9-8 team.
They weren't.
There's not going to be any doubt in my mind that next season there's going to be some form of, preparing for training camp, or even maybe if the Cowboys make it to the playoffs again, there's going to be some form of a comment from, I don't know, probably Dak, where they admit that they overlooked the Packers and were just thinking like divisional round, NFC championship, had these other teams circled. It's going to sound like an excuse, but I truly believe it.
And not only that, but how about Mike McCarthy having his years with the Green Bay Packers and to get outcoached by LaFleur? The guy that took your job, you think that you have a better job than Dallas Cowboys. You supposedly have the better team. You're the 2 seed, you're the 7 seed, and he schooled you. That's got to be demoralizing.
Oh, 100%. But I don't think it's very surprising, though.
It's not surprising because I always thought LaFleur was a great coach.
Yeah. Do you remember when he got hired from the Cowboys? We kind of forgot because it was 3 years ago, but nobody really liked the move. Like no one thought he was a world beater and this is going to propel the
Yeah.
Cowboys to the championship. It's like, what's Jerry Jones doing here? This is not forward thinking.
It was a safe hire. I remember it going down, and I don't think I remember any reports of him interviewing. And then when they named the move, I was like, okay, Super Bowl winning coach. That makes sense, I guess. But I wasn't like, this is an upgrade over Jason Garrett. Now they have played really good football, and he's been to the playoffs, I think, every year with the exception of one where they had the really bad year where Dak broke his leg. Um, yeah, I think this is kind of like any other, kind of like when John Fox was the head coach of the Broncos and it just wasn't good enough for Elway, so he got in Gary Kubiak. You just like they're there. I think they're there. I don't think there's a curse on the Cowboys. I think that they just run a they just run a had a run of terrible luck the last 30 years, which is incredible. But
No,
yeah,
I think they have a culture right now where they get cocky. They get cocky, they get
yeah.
arrogant, and they overlook the competition.
No, that's fair.
It's not to say they've overlooked the 49ers because I just think the 49ers were the flat out better team. But even so, you could tell with the 49ers, they couldn't keep their emotions in check.
Yeah.
They couldn't keep a level head, thinking way too much about the game instead of just playing. Like, and this year, I think it was just a case where they think they were better than everyone else, especially with the way they came out on top over the Eagles in the NFC East. They thought they were going to get the. I'm telling you, I really have a feeling that they were looking at the 49ers. Like that was going to be their next matchup. They weren't even
Yeah.
thinking about the next two and taking it week by week. I really think they were looking ahead to that NFC championship, thinking that was theirs. That was their spot to have.
So when we get deeper into the offseason, what do you think the excuse is going to be for the Philadelphia Eagles with the way their season ended?
Oh
Losing
God.
6 of their last 7. This is an unprecedented collapse. Like,
Yeah.
I know Cowboys fans are getting run through the ringer today on all the shows. Stephen A. Smith is loving it, but the Eagles doesn't even compare to what the Cowboys went through. Like they were 10-1. They were 10-1 and now they are out in the first round and they didn't even get to 12 wins. They were 10-1. They played the Niners and it hasn't been the same since. And I agree with Nick Bosa. They put it out to the world that they are, as Steve Young said, pretenders. And I wonder what's going to come out this season. I do believe Jalen Hurts was hurt. I think at some point I mentioned it to you against the Jet game. He was not moving around very well on that knee, and he did not look like the same player. Now he could move around when he needed to, but as far as like the pull read option that he was doing for the last 2 seasons, it wasn't as effective. And I don't know what the hell that game plan was last night. They ran for 200 yards against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their Week 3 game, and for whatever reason, I want to say they ran the ball. I'm gonna look it up right now. They ran the ball, I think, 15 times last night. Yeah,
Yeah.
15 times. I don't know why. And um, yeah, man. AJ Brown not being in the game did not help. They lost Julio Jones, but 32-9. 32-9 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I will give credit to the Buccaneers. They earned that game. Hands down. Baker Mayfield had a fantastic game, but I don't think they're that good. And I think the Philadelphia Eagles look like they didn't want to play in the game. They look
No.
like they went through a bunch of shit this season and they just wanted their season to end. They
Yep.
were olaying tackles. Kevin Byard, who I thought was going to come in and just light up guys, fucking olaying a tackle against Palmer, their rookie wide receiver. They all just look thoroughly unprepared for that game. And
Yep.
it is alarming to me how that went down from a season ago where they were on the doorstep of winning the Super Bowl and then for whatever the hell happened this year. Now, we all know that the Eagles did not look good for the majority of the season, but they got through it. Their offense was predictable. Their defense gave up points, but they just got through it for the first 11 weeks. And then the Niners hit them in the mouth, and it wasn't the same. So, your thoughts, Stephen?
So I want to respond here right away to Otis Bird. The Niners may have broken the Eagles.
Yeah.
I don't think they broke the Eagles. I think they put a crack in whatever glass case was covering their 10-1 season.
I
think
thought you were say they had a crack on the Liberty Bell like the graphic had last night.
Exactly. They put the crack in there and it was just permanent. But from then on, the Cowboys losing 33-13. And I'm not taking anything away from the 49ers win. But I'm just saying, like, they didn't officially break them because there was still some season left to play. Then another crack from the Cowboys, 33-13, and they were officially broken, I think, after that loss to the Seahawks 20-17. That's when the team was in disarray. They didn't want to play with each other. You heard AJ Brown at the end of the season. Supposedly, they were just going rogue against the head coach, and there was just a total disconnect. So the Niners are certainly the reason, I think, that the Eagles kind of started to get down on themselves. I absolutely think so. But like but the Niners are a really good team, though. The Niners are a really good team. When they lost to their NFC East division foe in the Cowboys and the Seahawks, yeah, all right, that's when, okay, maybe we really are pretenders, and it starts to creep into the back of their mind. Then you got Jalen Hurts saying that everyone needs to buy in. I mean, come on, dude. They brought in Matt Patricia to take over the defensive play calling. Matt Patricia, Pencil Patricia. What the hell? That's a sign right there that things were not going the way they were supposed to go. Like, if you bring in Matt Patricia to save your defensive play calling, I don't know what to tell you. The entire season, though, even in that 10-1 slot, they kept on winning those close games. They should have lost a couple of them, but that defense was not the same all year, just giving up all these open field. I'm not even going to say, you don't normally use the term open field tackles, all these open field catches where it's just a wide receiver would catch it against them and they'd have all this green grass available. And that's what the Buccaneers had, and they took advantage. Dude, even more than that Trey Palmer touchdown, because you mentioned that Kevin Byard, that was just inexcusable. But good God, who was it? Was it number? Oh God, I forgot. I can't even remember his name. I didn't even know who it was. Who was he? He was a wide receiver. David Moore.
Oh, David Moore from the Seahawks.
When David Moore walked in for that touchdown, and everyone is just cruising over, just strolling on over, jogging, as there's 4 or 5 guys around him. Like, that was way more telling to me than Trey Palmer. I mean, obviously Kevin Byard missed that tackle flat out, and Trey Palmer just walked into the end zone. But how the hell did David Moore escape from like 4 guys surrounding him, even though he barely broke a tackle? Just terrible, 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 terrible.
All right, I got the hot sauce on the chip. I'm going in.
Oh,
so Jalen Hurts. Ooh, Jalen Hurts. I thought was hurt, but he still played fine for most of the season. But he regressed, and I hate saying this. I think he's a very talented player, but I don't know if he's a smart player. And I'm not knocking him as a person, but like to take that sack in the end zone for a safety, like I don't know. He just does dumb things a lot, and so do a lot of other great quarterbacks. But you saw last night, whatever was going on with Dallas Goedert, where he was frustrated with him, yelling at him on the sideline. Excuse my hiccups. And I don't know, man. I don't know about Jalen Hurts.
Right.
But I will say this. If he had a better offensive play caller like he did with Shane Steichen a year ago, then I think he'd be fine.
Yeah.
But Nick Sirianni does not bring out good football in him. And do you disagree?
No, I'll push back on the notion that he's probably not a high IQ player. I think he is. He made plenty of those types of plays last year. I just think that speaks to how discombobulated the offense was, and how much how much he needs to have trust in his offense. Like, I don't think he trusted them at all this year. Not willing to make. I mean, he made a couple of throws downfield. Obviously, Devontae Smith had a huge one last night, and I mean, we could also talk about the wide receiver debacle. Even though AJ Brown and Devontae Smith are one of the funniest duos in the NFL in terms of the mic'd up stuff, AJ Brown's body language when Devontae Smith is getting a lot of targets, not great. but I just don't think that Hurts really trusted his team this year. I really don't. And Derek, I'm gonna bring this up again because there's Ernie 2 saying Derek not phased by the sod sauce. Attaboy.
I'm
Then
sorry. Should I just wreck like you? Here, ready?
no, hang
I'll
on.
go.
And then AJ Cruz, Derek has an iron stomach. Look, AJ Cruz and Ernie too. We've heard this before. AJ, you're a relatively new friend. Like I feel like what's his face in Pineapple Express? You know, like
Yeah.
Dale, you're a new friend.
Yeah.
But when I hung out with Derek, and we got Wingstop once. All right, this is when we were both living in Livermore. We got Wingstop. He got the atomic flavor for fun. He got mango habanero, the second hottest, which for any normal human being will make you have to drink milk for the next hour. But Derek gets the atomic and eats it like it's a regular chicken wing without anything on it.
Yeah.
It is gross how much you can take the hot sauce.
I would say more impressive.
And I don't know what you okay, that's yeah, probably. I don't know what it would take for you to actually react because
Dude, I'm telling you, I want to try a Carolina Reaper. I want to try Pepper X.
yeah, but
And
like,
that would get me. 100% it would.
it would, but I don't want you to die.
I'm not going to die. I just want to try it out. Like I'll tell you, I talked to A. Scott. I went to Rookies in San Jose this weekend. Got the Black Diamond chicken wings, and those were rough, but I got through it.
You guys are you're crazy, bro.
Well, what do you want me to do? Here, this is Steven. This is Steven every week. Oh, good.
Yes,
I feel the pain, but I'm not going to react that way.
The appropriate reaction. And you know what? Ernie too has the right idea here. Maybe Derek needs to eat like a PB&J sandwich with mustard. Yeah, I agree. Maybe eat like something gross instead of something hot where you're just unfazed.
That would probably get me more.
Yeah.
That would probably get me more. Because like I've always loved food challenges. I love just eating spicy food because I think I can handle it. There's definitely things that could get me though. So yeah, next season I'm going to upgrade to get the Pepper X sauce, and I'm sure that will do me in.
Okay, but you'll get used to it, and then nothing will happen. And Otis Bird, shout out to San Francisco Premier Outlet Mall in Livermore.
It's good.
Oh my God, dude! If you see like a bus tour full of people that are not from the Bay Area, who are maybe from Europe or maybe from China, you see those bus tours roll in there constantly, and they think they're going into San Francisco because it's the San Francisco Premium Outlet. No, you're just on the side of 880 or 580 in the middle of nowhere in Livermore. You're not in San Francisco. Where's the Golden Gate Bridge? 40 minutes away from here, maybe 45. You can travel 45 minutes east or west rather, and you can find it.
No, that
Meanwhile, enjoy the Levi's outlet. Enjoy the Tilly's. Enjoy the Boudin, not the Boudin SF, but the Boudin in Livermore outlets. Enjoy. It's just such false adverts. Yes, exactly, AJ. That's what I call false advertising. 100%.
Oh yeah, it's very misleading.
Nice outlets though.
Yeah,
give them credit.
As far as the Eagles though, just to wrap up on them, I mean, it looked like they gave 0 fucks last night, and that's alarming for a playoff team. They had injuries, but for the talent level that they have to get routed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who beat them 2 years ago, but that was a very different year, or they're a very different team that the Tom Brady Bucks had to the Baker Mayfield Bucks. So it was kind of eye-opening to be like, all right, we thought this team was right on the cusp from a Super Bowl a year ago, and then they made some upgrades here or there. But I think the biggest loss was losing both their coordinators. And I think Shane Steichen leaving hurt them the most. And I think Jonathan Gannon leaving hurt them a lot as well. They did not have a good defense. They couldn't generate any pass rush. I think James Bradbury is kind of done in the NFL. Or not done in the NFL, but just he's kind of he's rough. He's rough in coverage. He gives up a lot of plays. And Darius Slay, I'm not sure about him either. I think that whole defense needs to be reworked. But the biggest deal to me was losing Shane Steichen and really exposing how I think we question what Nick Sirianni does on this team. And if he's not an offensive play caller, then he's just some, as we said a year ago, some meathead that is screaming from the sidelines, telling Chiefs fans, "See ya!" Or just like a year ago, like when he went to the Colts fans and said, that's for Frank Reich. Like he's just a shit talker. So what does he do? Does he motivate the team? Obviously not. The locker room or in the toilet. So what does this guy really do? And there's times where I've come around to him, but the truth is he's a fraud. And I don't know if he's a head coach in the NFL. I remember his introductory press conference. People make fun of Dan Campbell for biting the kneecaps. Go look at Nick Sirianni. He could barely get through the press conference. He didn't know what to say. And he was nervous, and he's made up for it since then. But as far as being an offensive play caller, I don't know what the hell he does. So I will say this. Should Nick Sirianni get fired? Absolutely, I think so. Because I think this whole season exposed him for how little impact he has as a coach. But are they going to? I would say not. Because I think it's hard to fire a coach that just took your team to the Super Bowl a year ago. What they are probably going to do is fire Brian Johnson as offensive coordinator and fire Sean Desai and Matt Patricia as defensive coordinator, and they're going to get better help around Nick Sirianni. But if I were Jeffrey Lurie or Howie Roseman, I would tell Nick Sirianni, that's on you now. You got to show that you're worth a damn. So we want you to be the offensive play caller, and then we'll decide if you're worth having as a head coach going forward. Because he's got to prove that he has a place on this team. Like, I understand there's great motivators in this game, but if you're pegged as a offensive play caller, like he was the offensive coordinator for the Colts, and then he got this job. So what do? Prove your worth. So I would say Nick Sirianni should be fired, but most likely going to stay and is on a very simmering hot seat next season.
It's not just how the players it's not like in that game with the Bucks. It's not just that they were done with the season. They were done with each other. They didn't want to play with each other. They didn't want to take this thing for another 3 weeks. They all needed a break, but it starts with the head coach. And I don't think it's all too ridiculous to say that it should be considered that you maybe part ways with him, because there's a lot that went wrong this year. And I think a lot that the head coach can control. Like the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator heading elsewhere, getting head coaching jobs, that's not something that is necessarily under his control, but he can do the hiring. And he clearly hired the wrong people, didn't make the right decisions. Starts there. And then I go back to Javon Hargrave, him on Eric Armstead's podcast, talking about practices, how the 49ers and Eagles compare, and basically said that the Eagles practices are soft compared to what the 49ers do. That starts with the head coach. Everything, the way that the organization runs from training camp on. And I think the Buccaneers, even though Todd Bowles is a questionable head coach sometimes, always blitzing when he probably shouldn't, and the fact that the Eagles didn't do anything to combat that blitzing and then just kept on they just kept on going empty. They just kept on putting Jalen Hurts in the shotgun and going empty the entire game. Like, what? That's not how you stop a blitz. But I think that they're going to consider it. I don't think they're going to actually do it. But the fact that they just were completely out of touch with each other.
Yeah.
Like that's on Sirianni. So I think that eventually he could get let go, especially with what happens next year. And it's not going to get any easier when you're missing your center in Jason Kelce, who's retiring after 13 years.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because
if you want to talk about, like, the head coach being the captain of the ship, well, then Jason Kelce, he kind of looks like a pirate. Jason Kelce was the first mate, he's the guy that really kept them all in line. And that's going to be a brutal loss for them next year.
Oh, 100%. Like we saw last night, he was hugging his offensive line coach and tears were coming down. And it seems like it's the end. Adam Schefter reported today that he is retiring, but Jason Kelce didn't want to say anything to the media after the game. And I'm sure he wanted to say that himself. He'll probably announce it in some press conference or do it on the podcast with Travis. But yeah, I mean, It's going to be tough because he's been, the catalyst for a lot of those teams back in 2017. He was there, so he's got his ring. But that's a bad way for him to go out. Like for a Hall of Fame career, arguably one of the best centers in football or the best center in football, for him to go out like that sucks. So they'll have to make a lot of changes. Um, I think on the defensive line, the offensive line, a lot of guys like Brandon Graham, he says he wants to come back. I think that's too late. I think Fletcher Cox, all those older guys, they got to overhaul that whole defense. And as far as the offense, yeah, I don't know if it's a smart move to leave it in Nick Sirianni's hands, but someone's got to help out Jalen Hurts because I was talking about it with you, man, in week 2. They won that game against the Vikings, but good Lord, their offense is basic as shit. And it can't just be, well, we're going to overpower you with the tush push. That didn't work last night. You got to get more creative than that. And I don't understand why Rashad Penny was in the doghouse for all of this season. I understand, like, I've been harping on that way too much, but couldn't you have like a big beefier back help you in those situations and have it's not just going to be Jalen Hurts. It could be somebody else that dives for this first down. So, like, would Kyle Shanahan or Matt LaFleur just run the same play over and over and over again? I know it was very effective, but there's other ways to counteract the defense, fake it. I didn't see any creativity out of that offense, and I think it's because Nick Sirianni is a basic coach.
Let's take Christian McCaffrey predicting the play on Monday Night Football, where he sees Dallas Goedert. I think was it Dallas Goedert? Yeah, I think so. Where he was running across when he was running behind the line of scrimmage, when he was motioning behind the line, and McCaffrey knew exactly where he was going to go. Where the run was going to go and all that. But Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur do the same thing, and you'll see it with Bobby Slowick. You'll see it with anyone from the coaching tree. I guess, who is it? Scott Kubiak is probably the next man up now from that 49ers coaching staff. But the way that they run out their formations, it's the same, right? You could run the same formation, but you're disguising things. You're running different plays. It's very sequential, the way that they call those plays. There was none of that with the Eagles. None of that.
No, definitely. Lastly, as far as the NFC side, the best game of the weekend, hands down, was Rams-Lions. And it was all hyped up with Matthew Stafford coming back to Detroit, Sean McVay going up against Jared Goff, and Jared Goff outplayed them all. He, in my opinion, had his best game as a pro. And I know he's had a lot of great moments as a Ram, but this was the pinnacle of his career, in my opinion. He looked focused. He looked sharp. Not many mistakes. One touchdown pass, but 3 scoring drives on the first 3 possessions. The running game was great. Matthew Stafford looked great too. I think basically, this game could have gone either way. Just the Lions were very effective in the first half and didn't score much in the second half. They kicked the lone field goal. And then the Rams just weren't good in the red zone. They, got screwed by Kyren Williams' injury. Maybe some questionable calls here or there on Puka Nacua, pass interference, but then I believe there was a false start that really screwed the Lions. In the end, it was a great story for Jared Goff to get his vindication against the Rams organization and win this first playoff game for the first time in 32 years for the Lions.
I don't know how anyone can dislike this team. I really don't. Even Rams fans. And for all 15 of them, like, they're probably they got to at least be able to stand up and give that a round of applause, because they did Jared Goff dirty the way that he left. He was kind of an afterthought. It's like the question was after the Stafford trade, all right, we know the Rams direction, but what's going to happen with Goff? So he's just a starter for the Lions. And everyone just kind of thought, I mean, not everyone, I personally thought that he was just going to, he was going to be a starter for a few years. They weren't going to win anything. And then eventually he'll just be the Ryan Tannehill type, where it's like he might find another team eventually, but it's not going to work with the Lions. But Dan Campbell completely turned things around. And I mean, you could contrast that or juxtapose that with the Eagles, like, playing for each other, man. I think it's something that we often look at as kind of a cliche, as kind of just some myth. and it's just a way for these guys to talk to the media and actually give an answer. But Jesus Christ. Did something happen with the Nuggets and the Sixers just now or something?
No, what happened?
Someone's going nuts in our
Who?
apartment complex.
Oh,
Did something
sorry.
happen? What the hell is he cheering about? Oh, Kings over the Suns, fourth quarter. That's
No,
it.
you got diehard Kings fans in there.
I want to fucking smack this guy. Jesus. It's just nonstop.
Sorry.
But anyway, good Lord, that was violent.
Everyone on my floor is gone now. So
Oh, nice.
I'm loving this. I don't know why I'm whispering this, but I'm loving this now.
But anyway, where was I going? Because he just totally distracted me. Oh, Lions playing for each other.
Jared Goff, yeah.
And it was a high level football game. Like, good God, Stafford was making some unbelievable throws. Don't know if he should have come out there after when the fingers come into play, and it's
I hear you. I definitely hear you. But I think we also have to trust that he was good to go because Matthew Stafford has been through worse than that, in my opinion. Like, remember his rookie year where he, hurt his shoulder. He's got some great mic'd up moments. Like the rookie year where he threw that touchdown pass to beat the Cleveland Browns. He's like, it's out. It's out. Like his shoulder popped out and he still threw it. Like
crazy.
He's a tough son of a bitch. So I understand people are like, "Ooh, that doesn't look good." Matthew Stafford's tough. So I think let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I don't think people intentionally look like so much goes into concussions now that I understand what happened with Tua last year, but I don't think with all of the independent neurologists around the sideline, I think that I know this may sound naive of me, but I think that teams are doing their best to keep their players safe and healthy. And I think that was, evident when Jamal Adams this year was very upset that he was taken out of a game for concussion and he wanted to fight their neurologist on the sideline.
Right.
I just think that I understand it didn't look great, but I'm going to trust the Rams for doing the right thing in that situation. But I could be wrong.
Yeah. Well, he stayed in the game and he still played fine afterwards. It's just, he was just play after play, man. Like they were making them, they just weren't getting it downfield. I don't know what it was. I mean, I guess it was just the plays on third down that just weren't getting them by. I mean, there was a total of 9 points scored in the second half, but still, it was the most entertaining game that we could watch throughout because you didn't know what was going to happen. I really thought the Rams were going to score on that final drive.
When
they had like 5 minutes left, I was like, they're absolutely going to go downfield and score here. And lo and behold, the Lions get a big stop. So, Jesus, just a hell of a game. And it just, I don't know, seeing Goff afterwards, how happy he was, seeing that locker room video with Dan Campbell, it was really cool.
Oh,
it was really cool. And it makes you wish, like, God damn, I wish I was an athlete so that I could have those moments in the locker room, because you hear athletes all the time talk about how the thing they miss the most is when you win in the locker room, especially in the playoffs after a win. Like, God, it must be just such a unbelievable time to be had in that locker room and on the plane ride home.
Did the Kings win? I think they're losing to the Suns right now.
I think they are. I have a feeling this guy below me is not a big Kings fan.
Oh, okay, never mind.
Because I also heard him yelling about Draymond. I heard him yelling about if the Pelicans don't beat the Warriors, like he's saying some sort of world-changing take. Easy there.
You should get this guy on the radio. Yeah, and I think that the Sean McVay made the right move by kicking the field goal because that fourth down was way too long, if I remember correctly. They were facing if I go down to the box score right here, where they kicked the field goal, they were facing a 4th and 8 on Detroit 11, so it was the right call to kick the field goal. They just never got the ball back. No, sorry, that was later. They had to punt the ball. Yeah, that makes sense. It was a 4th and 14. Yeah, they had to punt the ball back, and Amon-Ra St. Brown just made a great play, and he had a fantastic game. He deserved to be an All-Pro this season. 7 catches for 110 yards. That guy's one of my favorite wide receivers in football. And the Lions were just the better team. Where I thought this game was going to be different was the coaching. I thought that Sean McVay is a better coach than Dan Campbell, and I thought that was going to be the difference. And that was the difference in the Packers-Cowboys game. But for this game, it was just the Lions were the better team. And Jared Goff, on this day was the better quarterback than Matthew Stafford. I still think the Rams made the right move, and they would agree because they won the Super Bowl. But and I know that Jared Goff was done dirty, but it was the right move. It was the right move. But you know what? Everything's working out for the Lions right now.
We talked about it last week, dude. It worked both like this was a
I know.
good trade for both
Yeah.
sides.
No, it was.
Jameer Gibbs, Sam Laporta, and Jameson Williams, all in return, and Jared Goff for Matthew Stafford. I think that's a very well worth it trade because the Lions, even though no one's really given them a chance in the NFC, you never know, they could surprise some people. Like Jared Goff is a different player than he was, with the Rams, and I know he's terrible against the 49ers, but I think the 49ers and the Lions in the NFC Championship would be just a fascinating matchup.
Definitely because of the running game. Like we talked about it with the Cowboys and Eagles, they couldn't run the ball down the stretch. What separates the Lions from most teams is their play action fake and their ability to throw down the ball down the field and their effectiveness with David Montgomery and Jameer Gibbs. So I'll ask you this, Stephen, and only you and people on the chat here if they want to get involved. Are the Lions the biggest threat to the 49ers right now, considering the Bucs or even who they're facing this weekend against the Packers? Are the Lions the biggest threat?
Yeah. I don't think there's any other choice. I mean,
with that said, with the second part, with that said, and maybe this is just us focusing too much on the bigger name teams out of the NFC East, do the 49ers have an easier path now with the Cowboys and Eagles gone?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, is that just because, like, are we taking away from the Packers, Bucs, and Lions just because they're not the sexiest teams during the regular season? Well, Lions were, but they were considered for the most of this regular season. We were thinking the cream of the crop in the NFC were 49ers, Eagles, Cowboys, and maybe the Lions. And now that the Eagles and Cowboys are gone, now it's definitely the Lions. But does that make it harder for the 49ers?
No. Yeah. And even like I thought the hardest route would have been if they had to take on the Rams in the divisional round, because if that would have been the matchup, had the Eagles beat the Buccaneers, and then potentially the Cowboys in the championship game, because I really think the Cowboys are just dead set on trying to beat the 49ers. Like they're living rent free in Dak's head, and I don't think you could underestimate that. And I say this to say like let's just say the Buccaneers somehow beat the Lions. Like the Buccaneers aren't a good team. Have you, dude? They're not. Like they're fine, but with the way their schedule shook down, you got to play 6 of their games against NFC South opponents. The NFC South is terrible. The way they ended their season. I mean, what was it? Like you had a 9-0 win over the Panthers, 23-13, a loss to the Saints. And you had good wins over the Falcons, Packers, and Jaguars, but even the Jaguars were kind of, a dead team walking at that point. Where was the clip that I wanted to play? So I saw this on Twitter. I saw it pop up. I want to play it right now.
Go for it.
I guess this is Todd. I hope this is good. The caption here is selling it for me. But I guess Todd Bowles was asked about playing at Ford Field and forgot that Ford Field's in a dome. So this is Todd Bowles speaking today with the day after the game reporters.
Looking forward towards Detroit. The weather has been a factor in some of the playoff games, even for the most prepared teams. Today it's 13 in Detroit, which doesn't compare to some of the temperatures we tend to drop to. Any special plans to acclimate the team to not only endure, but perform in those kind of frigid temperatures should you face them in Detroit?
You do know we play indoors, right?
Okay, so he did know. Okay, thank God. It was the problem.
Okay, the reporter. I don't know what the hell that is.
Okay, thank God.
That's fantastic.
That was the reporter. Okay, that was the reporter. I thought that was a Todd Bowles thing. Hand up. My fault. I got excited.
No, all good.
I saw a caption.
I'm still going to play that tomorrow. You best believe that's going on our show. Where that's such a dumb question.
Oh, all right. Now I'm getting requests to finish it. Do you want me to finish this?
I do want to hear how that ends.
That's on me. I thought that was a Todd Bowles thing. That's on me.
No worries.
Looking forward towards Detroit.
It's better be good.
It's been a factor in some of the playoff games, even for the most prepared teams. Today it's 13 in Detroit, which doesn't compare to some of the temperatures we tend to drop to. Any special plans to acclimate the team to not only endure but perform in those kind of frigid temperatures should you face them in Detroit?
You do know we play indoors, right? They got a dome. I don't. No, nothing planned. We're indoors, and we only have to be outside for 20 seconds, getting off the bus, going under the thing. So we'll be okay.
Thank
What
you,
a
Todd.
nice guy.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Todd.
Wow, what a nice guy. Better
You
than
can see-
Mike Tomlin.
You could see yourself out. Oh, Mike Tomlin did nothing wrong.
He didn't do anything wrong, but it's still funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I will answer my question, Steven. I do think the Lions are the biggest threat to the 49ers now, and
Yeah.
I'll also say this. Bucks-Lions in the divisional round, that doesn't sound like a divisional round playoff game to me.
no.
Like
No.
that, like I know it's going to be hyped up this week. It's on NBC. Even if it was Eagles-Lions, and I know how bad the Eagles played, but if it was Eagles-Lions, that would have been much better than Bucks-Lions. Like the Lions should beat this team. I know everything can happen in the playoffs, but I don't want to see the Bucks in the NFC Championship game. I don't want to see this team in the playoffs to begin with. So yes, they kicked the crap out of the Eagles, and whatever happened to the Eagles, we'll find out. But give me the Lions. Like I am impressed with the Lions. I think that Dan Campbell has changed that culture. I always thought maybe they could go the deepest in the playoffs just because they're the most physical between them, the Cowboys, and the Eagles. The Lions were definitely the most physical team. They run the football. They're getting better with C.J. Gardner-Johnson coming back. They got something. I don't think they could beat the Niners, but maybe they could. We'll see if it's an NFC Championship game. But yes, the Lions are the biggest threat to the 49ers right now. But do the Niners have an easier path? I'll answer with this. Did we think that this was going to be easy path to begin with how they beat down the Eagles and Cowboys in the regular season? So I think it's about the same. But I do think the Lions probably give them a bigger question mark because they've never played this team before. They did that one game, week 1, a couple years ago, where Jared Goff threw the pick 6. It was his first game as Lions quarterback. He threw one to Dre Greenlaw. That's the game where the Niners were up big, and then the Lions came back. But I don't know. I don't think Kyle Shanahan has a feel for the Lions. I don't think Dan Campbell has a feel for the 49ers. So if they do meet up, I think it would be interesting.
I blame the Saints. I blame the Saints for this.
Yeah, they should have made the playoffs.
Yeah, I blame the Saints because they were if you want your conference, which it's been the last few years, if you want your conference to actually seem like it's going to be competitive in the playoffs, there better be 5 or 6 teams that you have as absolute locks. The 5th and 6th team, for a fact it's going to be interchangeable. They're either going to be first or second in their division, no in between, and they're going to be so far ahead of the other second place teams that those are the locks right there. Then the 7th can escape, can just slide in because that playoff spot was added in 2020. But you're supposed to have 5 to 6 competitive teams, and the Saints were supposed to be that, and they didn't. So I blame the Saints. I blame Derek Carr. I blame Dennis Allen for this whole divisional round in the NFC, which really, Buccaneers' Lions is just so meh. It's like the Thursday night football game where everyone thought that it was going to be a good matchup on paper, and then you get it, and it's not.
No, it's a Thursday night football game that we're getting in the playoffs. It's crazy. I will get to the.
I think the Lions are going to
Saints.
smash them. By the way,
You think so?
yeah.
What's the spread on that right now? 6?
I'd have to look that.
Yeah, I think it is. I'll get to the NFC South a little bit later. I think that we could see massive changes in that division, and namely the Saints. That's a tease, ladies and gentlemen. Just to get to the AFC playoffs here. These games I think were dictated by the quarterbacks, from CJ Stroud to Patrick Mahomes to Josh Allen. These guys were the difference makers in their games. And just to go to Browns and Texans, because that was the first game on Super Wildcard Weekend, CJ Stroud's incredible. For all the talk that we had up to the draft, think about that. Think about all the stupid ass shit that was said about, this guy failed the cognitive test or whatever the hell it was. Could he play? And I always thought that CJ Stroud, in my book, was a little bit better than Bryce Young coming out, just because he had the height and I liked him better as a pocket quarterback. Bryce Young I thought was going to be good too, but he's obviously struggling. I think it's hands down that C.J. Stroud's offensive rookie of the year, but that's beside the point. He makes them a dangerous playoff team. I don't know how far they'll go, but they were the reason they won that game. He didn't play the first time, obviously, against the Browns, and that was the difference. Also, the magic of Joe Flacco ran out. And for equal parts of him being entertaining with the way that he played, he also was a gunslinger and threw tons of picks, and a lot of them went for pick sixes, but it really didn't matter. And this was the first time it did. He threw 2 bad interceptions that were turned back for touchdowns. I don't know how the hell the Browns were the #1 defense at home and the 32nd ranked defense on the road. Like, they gave up 45 points to the Houston Texans, and the Texans are actually a pretty good offense. I never thought with Nico Collins and Noah Brown that they would have this receiving core, but they got something. Or maybe just C.J. Stroud makes them that better. But I thought the Browns defense was going to come to play. They did not. Myles Garrett did not make an impact. The reality is C.J. Stroud's a fucking star, and that's what separates. And DeMeco Ryans is a great coach too. He changed that culture. But C.J. Stroud is a star, and he's going to make the Texans a great team going forward.
Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur, the quarterback, head coach, play calling, it was more a product of his play calling. I think that applies there. I don't think that necessarily applies with C.J. Stroud and Bobby Slowick. But good God, that one touchdown run. Let me get the guy, because when he made the catch in the run.
Oh, Brevin Jordan.
Brevin Jordan. I had, for anyone who knows Conor McGregor and has seen him at his press conference, I literally had this reaction where I saw him. I'm like, who the fuck is that guy? Like, there's this just
and
amazing.
And not the fastest guy. That's a tight end running a 75-yard touchdown pass.
But that's just short pass blocking. That's what it's all about on that play. Blocking. But good God, man, this was the most intriguing thing to me. Just immediately, C.J. Stroud just coming out in the first quarter, going blow for, like, just trading blows. Him and Joe Flacco, showing that this older, now he's 39. He was 38 a couple of days ago. Now he's 39. Showing this 39. Hey, I'm not afraid to spar with you, George Foreman. I'm ready for this. Give me the uppercut. I'll punch back. I'll give you a straight right. Like, it was crazy what C.J. Stroud did. And I wish that would have continued, because really that was bound to be one of the great playoff games in history if it would have continued on the pace that it did in the first quarter. Good God, just big play after big play. Just unreal.
And big plays by the quarterbacks. And yeah, Joe Flacco's ruck just ran out. But yeah, man, I am thoroughly impressed with C.J. Stroud. I think he's going to be a star in this league, and he's going to catapult the Texans to, discussion in the AFC race. Like, look at the remaining quarterbacks we have right now. It's Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, and C.J. Stroud. Could he be in that group along with Joe Burrow as far as like the best quarterbacks in the AFC? I think it's definitely on the table. I do worry about Bobby Slowick getting a head coaching job, and then it all comes like we're talking about with the Eagles and Jalen Hurts, how he lost Shane Steichen. If they do lose Bobby Slowick, they do have to get somebody in there that's going to help C.J. Stroud going forward.
Mm-hmm. But this year though, I do want to say, like, Stroud's not afraid of the big stage. Like,
no, not at all.
We cannot forget what he did in that national championship game, even though they lost. 23 for 34, 348 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions in the national championship game against Georgia.
First round.
What?
It wasn't the national championship game. It was the first round.
Oh, it was the first round of the playoffs, and then Georgia played TCU. Yep. That's right. Yep. So either way, in the semifinal, still you're one of the final 4. Massive stage. You're playing on New Year's Day or whatever it is, or New Year's Eve or whatever.
Yeah, no, it was New Year's Eve. I remember.
And like, he was unfazed. So whatever he's played in before, like, that can absolutely apply to the NFL and play. Oh, the playoffs are different in the NFL. The field's different. The speed of the game's different. No, this dude CJ's played on the biggest of stages, man. Like, he's not afraid of the bright lights. And this game was fantastic. And man, I think this one against the Ravens is going to be I think it's setting up to be just an all-time classic. I really do. I think it's going to be a great game.
No, that could be the case, but I mean, I was one of those people that thought, okay, CJ Stroud's been playing great, but I don't know how he's going to play against this Browns defense in the playoffs. And he rose to the moment. So, yeah, I think CJ Stroud is extremely impressive, and he's going to make the Texans a threat in the AFC for the next few years here, or however long he keeps playing. As far as the other games, the Peacock game, everyone complained. I was at a bar. They had it on. There was some streaming issues, but at the end, we all watched it. And yeah, what the hell was that about with Taylor Swift?
Swag surf, bruh.
Okay, good to know.
Or Donna.
Yeah, she looked annoyed. She while I'm sure she's saying all the right things because she's Travis's girlfriend, but I'm sure she's like, God, this girl needs to be at every game now, taking up my shine. I'm down to Kelsey. I was the talk of the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah, brutal.
But as far as the game, do you think the Chiefs have found their groove again offensively, or were the Dolphins just really fucking cold?
I think the Dolphins were just cold.
Yeah, they did not like. We're talking about the Eagles wanting to get out of Tampa. It's warm. It's Tampa. The Dolphins from the get-go did not look like they wanted to play in this game. Like from Mike McDaniel coming out to Tua looking so cold, to Tyreek Hill even say like, "Oh, I'm freezing my balls off." To him, like, what did he tweet after the game? Like, I want to get the fuck out of there as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Like, you play there for years, dude. You know how cold it is. They had one good play on offense that was the deep touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill. But besides that, they did not look like they wanted to be out there. And it's hard to run that offense in those conditions that they were accustomed to in South Beach. But I don't know about Tua. I don't know if he's the guy. He's more of a system quarterback to me than Brock or Jordan Love or Dak Prescott. He just sees Tyreek Hill open and he sees Jalen Waddle, and if those guys are not there, then he doesn't know what to do. And I don't. If anybody, you know, if anybody didn't benefit from winning the division, it was them because they needed home playoff games.
Right. Like if they were at home, it might have been a different story. But
Yeah.
I think I've been really tired of like I don't know. I'm not gonna act like I've listened to every single thing that Tyreek has said about Mahomes in the past, but him acting like he didn't just go with a total downgrade from Mahomes to Tagovailoa. Like he's trying to sell us on Tua being, the most accurate passer that he's ever worked with, has the most catchable ball that I've ever had from a quarterback. Like all of that sort of stuff where he's trying to convince you that this guy can play at the same level of Mahomes. It's not true. It's not true. Mahomes is just a bit different beast altogether. And I still think they're going to be in trouble. It was pretty funny. I was watching that game at a bar, and it was funny listening to the reactions whenever Travis would drop the ball. Like he had a couple of drops in this one that were just egregious, and everyone was going nuts. It's insane the type of.
But it has nothing to do with Taylor.
No, it has. Well, no, the dude's just aging. He's getting old.
Yeah, that's the truth.
Actually, when we've been talking, I forgot to mention this. Like Darius Slay, you talked about Darius Slay on the Eagles. Dude's 33. Remember Richard Sherman when he was playing with the 49ers? He was on the back end of his career and he was 30, 31. Like, how can we expect the same out of these guys for year after year when they're towards their mid 30s? It's crazy. But no, the Dolphins just weren't prepared. And I don't know about Tua. I really don't. It feels like it's kind of the same as the Cowboys in a way, where it seems they have the talent, but they might need to move off their quarterback.
That could be the case, but as far as the Chiefs,
it's hard. Isn't it hard to parse through though? It's like you want to find a quarterback who is absolutely going to win you games, but Tua is just good enough to where it's too risky to let him go and go with someone else. Just because he seems to understand the system, he seems to work well with Mike McDaniel. Moving off a quarterback's really hard. It's a hard decision. It's why it took Kyle Shanahan forever to move off of Jimmy Garoppolo, even though he technically never really did move off of Jimmy Garoppolo. It was the contract that moved him off Jimmy Garoppolo. So like it's a much harder decision than I think we make it out to be. So it's so easy for us. It's easy for us. We're just like, yeah, get rid of this guy. What are you doing? Get rid of him. We don't need this guy anymore.
I mean, that's easier said than done, but that's what the Rams did. They knew that they weren't going to win with Jared Goff, and they made the upgrade to Matthew Stafford.
Maybe the Dolphins need to do that and just take a huge
I wouldn't be
swing.
surprised. I would not be surprised if they get a backup quarterback that can compete with Tua. And I don't know who that is at the moment. I don't think it's Jimmy because Jimmy's not going to do the same things that Tua does. But I do think they need to get somebody in there that can make Tua a little nervous. As far as the Chiefs, they played their brand of football in the postseason. They were cold too, but they can handle it better. Mahomes played a great game. Rasheen Rice has become the number one in that offense, and Isaiah Pacheco became the ground attack that they needed. But was I thoroughly impressed with their offense? No. I think it's the same offense that they've been rolling with for most of the season. It's been kind of ineffective. I don't think Mahomes trusts a lot of guys to throw to on the team right now. MVS still drops some balls. I think that Travis Kelce was fine, but he dropped some balls as well. But I think the only guys that Mahomes really trusts right now are Rasheen Rice and Travis Kelce. So, yeah, it was a typical Chief game. Not anything crazy like we've seen in the past where they just went off offensively in the postseason, but they did enough to win, and that's all they needed to do in this game.
No, and I mean, if you look at their defense too,
defense has been great.
They
could ride the D. They could ride the D.
They've been riding the D, dude. They haven't given up. By the looks of it, they haven't given up more than 20 points since. Damn, am I right? They've given up. They gave up 20 to the Jets, 20 to the Vikings, 8 to the Broncos, 17 to the Chargers, 24 to the Broncos. And I'm trying to find the date of that game, but it looked like was that
October,
week?
Right?
That was like week 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, they might have to ride this D all the way into Buffalo.
We know what we're doing, AJ Cruz. Look up Chris Rose. We understand. Ride the D. We get it.
Ride the D, hold the D.
Yeah. But I will say this. The most impressive AFC team over the weekend, and it may just be because they're playing. What are you laughing about? Ride the D?
The D. It's just I'm so immature, man.
The D.
God, they gotta grab the D and take it into Buffalo and just
take the D, baby. How much do you feed off that D? Nice.
Nice. Oh
my God. Tenacious D, baby. But I think the most impressive AFC team over the weekend was the Buffalo Bills. And that could just be that they were playing the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Steelers are probably the weakest team to go into the postseason. No TJ Watt. Offense so. Defense is good, but they were missing, obviously, their best player.
Mm-hmm.
Just Josh Allen, when he's on it, man, he's one of the best quarterbacks in football. And they're working the tight ends better now. He threw the touchdown passes to Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. But that touchdown run, a lot of quarterbacks are not able to do that stuff. Like most of them would slid. He just fucking trucked whoever the hell it was, and then just pushed off Minkah Fitzpatrick and just ran 59 yards. That was thoroughly impressive. Did they let up a little bit in the second half? They did. The Pittsburgh Steelers kind of crept back in, but Khalil Shakir's play was fantastic. They're missing guys. I'm sure they'll get Gabe Davis back. This is going to be a very interesting game against the Chiefs in Buffalo, but we got plenty of time to preview that. Injuries are kind of counting up. Terrell Bernard, I think their middle linebacker that's been playing well for most of the season, he got hurt. So I don't know how long they can have this keep going with how many injuries they have. But if they were at full strength, I would pick them to go to the Super Bowl. I don't know how they're going to be against the Baltimore Ravens. But right now, I've been really impressed with what the Buffalo Bills are doing because they finally have found a run game. And I know that you were skeptical before the season about James Cook, and I think it's working really well with him as they're kind of like a 1-2 punch where he runs, and then they got, who else? They got Latavius Murray. They're not really running him that much. They just released Leonard Fournette today off their practice squad. But I think they're actually doing a pretty good job with the running attack that we haven't seen them do in the postseason in the past.
Yeah, not been a great season for me in predicting running backs.
I'd say so.
But
then again, all summer I was like, when is Dalvin Cook going to sign? And Dalvin Cook didn't do shit.
James Cook was my number one that I was wrong about. Number two, Was it David Montgomery, or did I wonder? Yeah, I wondered what David Montgomery would bring to the Lions as opposed to DeAndre Swift. Turns out that he brings a nice 1-2 punch that's going to carry them through the postseason here.
Yeah.
Damn, I was wrong about that one. There's a couple I was wrong about with the running backs, but I drafted Najee Harris in fantasy, which is just a terrible decision.
I did the same thing. He was better down the stretch than he was for most of the season.
Mm-hmm. But back to the Bills. I don't even remember your original question. What was your original question?
I mean, out of all the AFC teams, which one do you think was the most impressive this?
Yeah, no, I think the Bills are right up there. I think they're rolling right now. But God, I got to hand it to the Texans too.
Yeah.
Texans just look like they're just ready. They're just ready for this moment, and it looks like they're really playing for each other, playing for D'Amico Ryans, and playing for their coordinator. I think they know that this is the last season with Bobby Slowick potentially going to a head coaching job next year.
Yeah, and you can say, sorry, go ahead.
And I wanted to bring this up with the Steelers because the AFC was, even though the AFC is looking really good right now, it should have been even better. The Jaguars should have been better than they were. Joe Burrow shouldn't have gotten hurt. They probably should have handled his injury towards the start of the season a little bit differently. I think the season-ending injury was different than his previous one, but they got him on the field
totally different.
But they got him on the field too early.
Yeah.
And it's great that the Bills are trending the way they are. Like, that's the biggest threat to me, but the Texans would be a close second. And the Steelers didn't excite me. And it's like, I just watched them all season. That offense was just putrid. Everything with Matt Canada. And then the George Pickens stuff. George Pickens continues to bother me.
What did he do this post game?
I mean, he didn't really overreact too bad.
Okay.
This is me more so, but like going back to this whole thing where he's not blocking downfield for Jaylen Warren just because he's too scared of getting hurt. That's not playing for your team. That's thinking about you as an individual, whether you're thinking about accolades or not. That's you thinking about yourself. And then fourth down, when it's a clear, when it seemed pretty clear that it was holding, and then on the replay, it was within 5 yards. It was on that fourth down play when they were down 31-17, and it was 6 minutes left or whatever in the game. The pass was incomplete, and then the Bills just ran the clock out, missed the field goal, and it was 31-17 the final. But Pickens just kept saying, all I could think about is the refs. All I could think about is the refs. Well, can't you like focus on the big picture for once? How about you focus on the rest of the game? Pretty sure George Pickens had a couple of drops in this one too.
He had a bad fumble too.
So it's like, how can you not? How are you going to blame the refs when you didn't play to the best of your ability? Like this guy, you know, it was great the game that he had after all that stuff with the blocking, and it's like he answered all his critics. He had like a crazy game where it was his best game of his career. It's fantastic. He had a good game, but the way that he handles everything, it's just, I've completely turned on this dude. I thought he was a lot of fun, but if you're not going to take accountability, man, I can't take you seriously. And I can't imagine what people in Pittsburgh must feel, the way people in Pittsburgh feel about him.
Yeah, he makes up a lot of excuses, and I don't know. The blocking stuff was a lot for me. Yes, he had a great game against the Bengals, but he talks too much for my liking. So if he has a consistent season, then maybe I'll care a little bit more. But as far as like him, I don't know. He just talks way too much for my liking. So he's got to back it up. The refereeing in this game was not great though. No. There was a clear fumble by Pat Freiermuth that was not called a fumble for whatever reason, and an explanation that was not given. So I don't know what the hell that play was, but it didn't hurt the Bills. They end up winning the game by 14 points. I would say as far as the Steelers, I think you're going to see a Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett battle in training camp for the quarterback starting position. Because while Mason Rudolph wasn't fantastic, he did play very well. I should say fantastic yesterday. He had the interception to Kareem Elam, I think his name is, or Career Elam, whatever, for the Bills. But he didn't play great yesterday, but he did play better down the stretch. So I do think he's going to challenge Kenny Pickett for that starting job. But yeah, like I didn't think too much of Mike Tomlin storming off being asked about his contract situation, just because I thought he was pissed off that that question was being asked after they lost the game. I don't think he wanted to entertain that. I think he just wanted to talk about the game and what went wrong. And then they went home, and it's reported today that Mike Tomlin is expected to come back and finish out his contract with the Steelers. Whether he gets a contract extension, I don't know. But the man's been on that team for quite some time. And he's the longest tenured head coach now that Bill Belichick is leaving the Patriots. But I don't know what the future holds for Mike Tomlin. Maybe he does want to go to a different team after being with the Steelers since I believe 2007. But he's a great head coach. They've been to the they haven't been to the postseason every year, but they've been above 500 every year
Yeah.
that he's been head coach, or he's never had a losing season, I should say. So whatever happens to Mike Tomlin, I think that he's been a great coach in this league.
How the hell did the Steelers skate into the playoffs? This
Exactly,
was supposed to be
'cause of
the
him.
first year. This was supposed to be the first year they're not under 500 in
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin's time. Now he's got one more year left on his contract. He's going to play it out next year, and it's going to be the final year of his deal. And you never know. The Steelers could play for it, and maybe the Steelers would have had more of a chance if TJ Watt was healthy. But
Yeah.
I all I know is that I wasn't too thrilled to watch them in the playoffs this year. And
Yeah.
honestly, next year when you say Mason Rudolph, yeah, that didn't excite me too much.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a team that might need to take a swing at quarterback. Like Kenny Pickett doesn't seem to be the answer. I don't know if they're a new offensive coordinator next year is going to do it with a full off season. But good God, what a time. The Steelers, sorry.
Go
The
ahead.
Steelers, remember that after preseason? Everybody, watch out for the Steelers offense.
Yeah.
They are humming right now.
Yeah.
They
Yep.
look like the best team in the league. The preseason, what a joke.
Yep. No, it definitely did not happen in the regular season. What if they got somebody like Eric Bieniemy to go with that offense? Could that help them?
Of course.
I've heard that name thrown out there to be the new OC for the Steelers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they have quarterback issues. I don't know if they need to swing for a veteran. Like, I don't know if Russell Wilson needs to go there or Kirk Cousins. Maybe. I mean, they would be a hell of a lot better team. But I think also they're going to see what they have in Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph. They've never been one to really, go out for the big name quarterbacks. They've always developed them in the draft. They probably should go out for a big name quarterback, but I don't think they're going to do that. And that may be why we hear about Mike Tomlin, kind of like maybe wanting to leave or being frustrated because it's not the same without Ben anymore. But I think they're actually going in the right direction. I think they have a really good defense. They just need to improve the offense. But yeah, I mean, the Bills were the better team, hands down.
No doubt.
So that's it for the Super Wild Card Weekend. It was fun, but not the best games. Obviously, Lions-Rams was the closest one. Still entertaining, love football, but overall, not the best games.
No, it was disappointing in the divisional round. I think the AFC is going to be fascinating. I don't think the NFC too much. That's kind of a teaser in what we'll talk about on Thursday. But
Yeah.
I think the AFC is going to be those are going to be the games to watch this week, and it's not necessarily going to be the National Football Conference.
No, it'll be the AFC with the quarterback matchup. C.J. Stroud versus Lamar Jackson, and Mahomes versus Josh Allen is a little sexier than Baker Mayfield versus Jared Goff. Both, first overall picks, but kind of, having to prove themselves over again and on new teams. And then, young upcomers with Brock Purdy and Jordan Love. God damn it. Terrible with names these days, Steven. Awful. Some quick, not quick hits because we went through all of the games, but some quick news. Caleb Williams officially declaring for the NFL draft. There was a rumor out there that he, I guess, wanted to know if the Bears were going to take him first overall, but I don't think anyone knows what the hell they're going to do. And I think that's why Matt Eberflus was brought back as head coach, something we didn't talk about last podcast. I know a lot of people are like, what the hell's up with that? Even in the press conference, some Bears writer was like, so you guys didn't talk to Jim Harbaugh? And Ryan Poles was like, nope, didn't talk to him. Because I don't think they can hire a coach without telling them what their plan is. And I don't think they know. They're firing the offensive staff, but I don't think they know if they definitely want Caleb Williams or they want to keep Justin Fields. I think they're going to ride this out until maybe March and April, where they start deciding what they're going to do. And Justin Fields could be in play for a team like the Raiders, but he was playing good football down the stretch. And are we sure Caleb Williams is the real deal? He does look like it. He probably looks like an upgrade over Justin Fields, but I don't think the Bears could tell any coach that they hired, we're definitely doing this. I don't think they have a plan right now. They're going to vet all options.
Yeah, I think the Bears are in about the toughest position you could be in football right now. Number 1 overall pick or stick with Fields. Some team needs to take advantage of that. And I don't know if the Raiders need to be that team. I don't know who it needs to be. But some team needs to take advantage of that number 1 pick.
No, they definitely do. Kalen DeBoer, you brought it up last time, named head coach of Alabama Crimson Tide. So that'll be interesting with him leaving Washington and going to Alabama. Jim Harbaugh interviews with the Chargers. We knew that was happening, but we'll see if he actually goes to that team. And then it was just reported a couple of minutes ago, or right before we hopped on doing this podcast, that he interviewed with the Falcons as well. And Bill Belichick interviewed with the Falcons too, so that's interesting.
Well, we know that because the Falcons announced it in a weird way.
Well, that's what the Chargers are doing that, and so are the Falcons, where they want everybody to know, hey, we're swinging for the fences here. As long as these guys agree to come to the team, we did our best. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, finally. So we know that Jim Harbaugh is going to make the rounds. He already did with the Chargers and Falcons. I would fully expect we will see Jim Harbaugh interview with the Raiders. But Max Crosby does not want that to happen. Max Crosby went on his podcast and has let it be known that if Antonio Pierce does not become head coach of the Raiders, that he will want a trade out of there. And I understand his frustration because this is the first head coach in a long time that he's felt comfortable with. He wanted Rich Bisaccia. They didn't go with him. They went all in on Josh McDaniels. And now the Raiders have a guy that all the team wants to play for. But I also understand you at least got to talk to Harbaugh. And when you look at it, if Harbaugh goes to the Chargers, you're in a division that has Sean Payton, Andy Reid, and Jim Harbaugh, some of the biggest names in coaching. And then you have Antonio Pierce, who did a great job this season when he needed to fill in for Josh McDaniels, but is going to learn on the fly how to be a head coach in this league. And he's going to have help around him of, former coaches that he's been around, like Tom Coughlin or Marvin Lewis. I think he is the best option for this team, and I would make Antonio Pierce the head coach. But I'm not sure I love Max Crosby telling the Raiders, hire this man or I'm going to leave. And it's not his say. Like trade demands are trade demands these days. But you can't do this all over again with Khalil Mack, where if they don't make the right move and then they trade away the best defensive player on the team, the Raiders should not entertain this whatsoever. So it could just be all talk from Max Crosby. But I don't think he should be saying this publicly too.
Maybe not, but I get where he's coming from. Since 2019, it's just been nonstop. All right, I got a head coach that I like. All right, we move on to another head coach. All right, let's move on to another head coach. And when it comes to the Raiders, I'm always going to be a proponent of the players. If Mark Davis decides to move on from Antonio Pierce, yeah, you like my hands there? Thanks, thanks, Ernie, too. Now, if Max Crosby wants out, then fine. I'm always going to side with the players over Mark Davis, like every time. And if Mark Davis decides to move on, then there you go. You've already got a disgruntled superstar. You had that at the beginning of this. You had that at the beginning of this season, and look where it got you. I don't think that they would trade him because there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just, I'm just going to request a trade and I'm going to go somewhere. No, it's the team still has you under contract. You signed it. Like, they could keep you no matter what. So I don't think anything's going to happen, even if they do hire a new head coach. But good God, if they do and they don't get rid of Crosby and he just sits, it depends how he handles it next season. If he just mopes around and is kind of just not unmotivated, doesn't seem like the same Crosby that we've seen, doesn't have the same motor, not playing for the coach, whatever, then, I mean, you're already off to a bad start. And
Yeah.
and it's tough to find where you draw the line, where it's like, do you want to side with the player completely, or you want to side with the player knowing that it could be a detriment to your team in the following season? I don't really know. I actually like that he's speaking up, but I think he speaks for the team, man. Like
Yeah.
if he's saying this, I think a lot of the team feels this way. Like, God, they love playing for this dude, and you're not so much a believer in the leader of men sort of thing. You need the X's and O's guy. I'm the opposite. I think you need a guy who knows how to lead, and it starts with the culture. Look at all these teams that are bounced out now. Who knows with the Cowboys and whether they believed in Mike McCarthy and whoever else on that staff. The Eagles clearly didn't believe in their coaching staff, and that's where it's got to start with the Raiders. So, good God, if they don't hire Antonio Pierce after hearing that, I don't know what's going to sway them.
It's not that I don't believe in leader of men. I honestly think you need a balance. So I like that Antonio Pierce is a guy's guy and he's, command a locker room. I think that is the best for the Raiders. It has to coincide though with a good offensive coordinator hire. And it could just be Scott Turner gets elevated. Although I did see this rumor, Steve, I don't know if you saw this. Cliff Kingsbury is being named as a potential Raiders offensive coordinator. Yeah.
I
don't hate it.
At first, Cliff Kingsbury, but he also seems like the type of guy that could be very good if
Yeah.
he's not going to be making any other decisions besides calling plays on offense.
Well, I do hope that being in Vegas, I mean, the man likes his supermodels, so I hope he just sticks to football. Or I mean, whatever. You're the offensive coordinator. Do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah, whatever.
Although that documentary he was in with Baker Mayfield doesn't really exude a lot of confidence. He was like, "Yeah, I mean, Baker didn't know what the hell he was doing, and I didn't know what he was doing, so whatever." No, I mean, Antonio Pierce is being sought after. He did interview with the Tennessee Titans. So I do think if the Raiders do not make him head coach, he do has landing spots. I don't know if being a head coach in Tennessee will happen, but there is also the option of maybe being defensive coordinator for the New York Giants. I think in the end, no GMs have been hired yet as far as or besides Adam Peters with the Washington Commanders. And yes, Adam Peters is the GM, not Bob Myers. All right, so everybody can just chill off of that. I think that Harbaugh is going to pick who his GM is, and I think in the end, Harbaugh is going to think that the Chargers are the most attractive job because of Justin Herbert. But the Raiders do have a chance. I mean, there is a connection with him and Mark Davis and Don Yee and, the Raiders from Jimmy Garoppolo to Tom Brady. So there are connections there. I think in the end, Harbaugh will not be going to the Raiders. But yeah, I think Max Crosby, he knows what he's doing. I don't think he wants to leave. I just think he's tired of all this bullshit, and I don't blame him. But I want to make this as vocal as he's let it be. But whatever. That's just what players do now with their platform.
Did you see who the Raiders brought on to help advise their head coaching search? Did you see this?
I did not.
Richard Seymour.
Huh.
Yeah. He announced it via Twitter.
Well, when I think of great Raiders, I think of Richard Seymour.
Mm-hmm. They were in Vegas at the MLK parade. And, I mean, dude, Antonio Pierce is right there with Champ Kelly. They're rocking Raider gear. Richard Seymour's right alongside him. I don't know. Seems like it's almost a done deal, and all of this is just fodder.
I will say the last game of the year, you see Antonio Pierce give a speech in the locker room, and then you have Charles Woodson around him and Marcus Allen and every final home game of the regular season for the Raiders, they always bring back the old Raiders. And they all look at him with just like, this guy gets it. So I know Mark is going to probably feel, I got to at least talk to Jim Harbaugh. But I think everyone helping him in his corner is going to say, this is the guy, Mark. It's Antonio Pierce. Yeah. And it may be that when he plays against the Chiefs or the Broncos or the Chargers, he may be out-coached as far as what those guys can scheme up. But this guy can lead the players, and that's what you need to trust in. So we'll see what happens.
And if things go haywire, I'm going to go back to blaming Mark Davis, and I'm going to say that keeping Antonio Pierce was the wrong decision. He should have gone with Harbaugh, and then it's all going to fall on Mark Davis again. So that's how it's going to go next year.
That's fair. Speaking of Raiders, you brought up the Saints earlier. They fired their offense coordinator, Pete Carmichael, today. This may be crazy, but I think it's on the table. I think that John Gruden could become the Saints offensive coordinator, where he gradually comes back to the NFL, baby steps, not being a head coach. And if I was Dennis Allen, I'm sure as shit looking, behind my back at John Gruden becoming offensive coordinator. But with how much that guy has been involved with them in the offseason, helping Derek Carr, I'm not saying I'm like AJ Cruz. Look, don't get me wrong here. I'm not advocating for this. I know that John Gruden has said some stuff, or not said some stuff, emailed some stuff, but I do think it's on the table. I
Some
do
stuff.
think that with Derek Carr, I mean, yeah, okay, yes, sexist stuff, homophobic stuff, racist stuff. Yes, it's all happened. I understand what he's done in the past was terrible. But I'm not advocating for this. I just think it's on the table that this could happen.
God. I hope you're right. In a way, I hope
You
you're
hope
right.
I'm right?
Yeah. Yeah. Just to see all the pushback, all the blowback, because Roger Goodell, we forget Roger Goodell has not been a great commissioner over the past few years. And he is over the past few years, he's kind of actually helped rehab his image a little bit. But we can't forget the way that Goodell has handled everything ever since he's held that role. And he's got a contract extension. But if Roger Goodell brings back John Gruden, can you imagine the pushback? It's like
Well, he
all of
wouldn't
the,
be doing it, but he can't stop the Saints from hiring somebody.
can't he though?
Did they stop? I mean, Brian Flores is suing the league, and he's the defensive coordinator of the Vikings. Now, Brian Flores didn't do the things that John Gruden was, talking about in emails.
Yeah.
So that's totally different.
Yeah. But that can't, I mean, how's that really going to go though? Another thing,
go
the
over
reason
well.
why, if he's brought on as the OC, not just the pushback, but also him not having control, him not having any power over his team, just to be the number 2 to Dennis Allen. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but Gruden's like, I'll tell you what, man, I can make that Dennis Allen pushover out of a job. That guy's just running plays with Jameis Winston. Not on my watch.
I kind of like this. I kind of like this gumbo around here, man. I really like I like the local cuisine around here.
What do you call it? A beignet? Yeah, that's what we're running, man. Spider 2Y beignet.
Oh man, I think you could be right. I'm not
watch out for it.
You're absolutely right. If that happens, look, man, I'm not going to push back on it and say that's not going to happen. If it kind of does, I'm rooting for the chaos over in New Orleans.
It would be fucking chaos. No, I don't think enough time has passed for Gruden. And honestly, I question whether or not he should be coaching again in the first place. But I do think this is on the table, and I think Derek Carr would advocate for it. Lastly, here before we get out of here, Jackass of the week. I'll make it real quick for me. I don't know if you saw this, Steven. Last Friday night, Warriors playing the Chicago Bulls, and the Warriors won, but then they stuck it up the last 2 games against the Bucks and the Grizzlies. But they honored Jerry Krause at halftime. And it wasn't just for Jerry Krause. It was for the 90s Bulls, I think, in general. Steve Kerr was there, and the poor widow of Jerry Krause, I believe her name is Thelma. I could be wrong there. I apologize.
Yeah, no, you got it.
Okay. For all of them to boo the dead Jerry Krause, I thought was really disgusting. And I understand that they were just showing his photo, and there's a lot of, hatred towards the man. But I think that's all been generated recently because of The Last Dance. I don't think that's fair. I don't think that documentary, while it was very entertaining, did a good job illustrating what that guy did. He made those championship teams. Yes, he had a ridiculous ego trip with Phil Jackson, but they made it seem like he was dumb and stupid. He orchestrated the whole thing. He got, I believe he was there to draft Michael Jordan. But he understood that after a while, sometimes you got to tear down a dynasty. And funny enough, that's what I think the Warriors need to do today. But I thought it was, you never want to piss on someone's grave. And I thought that's what the Bulls fans did. And I commend Steve Kerr for saying something after the game. I thought that was disgusting.
When The Last Dance came out, BJ Armstrong joined the station and, asked about Jerry Krause. And this was actually the first time I've ever heard this phrase used in a non Pirates of the Caribbean setting. But
Scurvy?
he said dead men tell no tales. And it's like
Oh,
he can't say anything. Like he can't
Yeah.
respond to any of that. It's messed up. And I was listening to our guy Steiny talking about it, and I thought he had a really interesting take where it basically starts with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan went
Yeah.
out of his way to do everything to denigrate what Jerry Krause did. And by the Bulls fans being so loyal to Air Jordan, he was the one that that kind of created this whole thing around Jerry Krause and created this hatred towards him. So in a way, Michael Jordan is partially to blame, and obviously he
Mhm.
wasn't at the ceremony. It was disgusting. It was disgusting to hear that. And Warriors fans are sometimes it's the pot calling the kettle black because you booed your owner right after he traded Monte Ellis, and you were
Come on, people.
yeah, come on, you booed your owner there, like, and then turned into a dynasty, and now you love your owner. But I don't think they'd ever do this. I don't think they'd ever do this where, any GM or any front office member is long gone and you're still booing him. Like, that's just sad, low life stuff.
Yeah, was not a fan of that. So Chicago Bulls fans are my jackasses of the week. Pascal Siakam going to the Pacers?
Maybe. Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I don't think it was a good idea for the Warriors to get him too. I think it would. We'll get to another day, but it's time, man. It's time. All right, Steven. See you Thursday.
See you Thursday, my man.
All right, we'll be back Thursday. Thanks to the Ernies, AJ Cruz. Got Otis Bird in the chat tonight. I think that was it as far as Jesse too. Can't forget about Jesse. We'll be back on Thursday to go over the Super Divisional Weekend, whatever the hell they call the second round. I think it's just Divisional Weekend. See you guys then on Thursday. Steven, say what you always say.
It's just your opinion.